Welcome to TaleSquare Entitled Parents segment. Here, we share stories about parents who think the rules don't apply to them and believe the world should cater to their family's needs. Tune in to hear how an entitled mother snatched Opie's phone because he wouldn't let her son play games on it. Entitled mother snatches my phone out of my hand because I wouldn't let her son play games on it. I did not know they made those in Canada too. For context, I am a young university student. I have two phones. One is an old Huawei model that I use for school and work. It's quite slow but has all my authenticator apps for school, years of notes, the email I use for work, and my work number on it. It runs okay-ish, but is horrible in terms of processing speed and storage. Yet I'm lazy and keep putting off transferring all the data to make my future self's life easier. My second phone, on the other hand, is a newer iPhone 14 Pro Max model, and it has all my games, friend contacts, social media, etc. on it. This occurred back when classes were still in session, but reading all these stories jogged my memory, and now I finally have time to share it too. Everything is still so vividly detailed in my head that I basically can't get it out since everything was so absurd. Anyways, onto the story. I got onto the bus, a normal ride for me that I take every day. I take two connections, one which is an express bus from the university to a SkyTrain station, and the second from the SkyTrain station to home. The second bus is where I encountered this entitled parent. I sat down at the back of the bus where I always sit, and a woman who was on her phone and talking very loudly got on the bus with a noisy kid who was screaming and crying and throwing a tantrum for reasons unknown to me. I sighed, realizing it was going to be one of those rides, and tried to ignore the commotion. Little did I know, the child had climbed up next to my seat and was staring at my screen, while her mother was nearly 5 seats away, still in a heated conversation about who knows what. Out of nowhere, I heard a little voice ask, "Do you have games on your phone?" I spun around, and there he was. This little kid, perhaps 7 or 8, was gazing deep into my soul, on his knees on the seat, and inches from my face. I leaned back because, well, I don't function well with people up in my face, and this kid leaned closer. Foolishly, I replied, "Yeah. Can I play on it?" "No. Go away." "But I'm bored." "I don't care. Go away." The kid pouted and ran off. I thought that was the end of it. Then, a shadow loomed over me. I heard an ahem, then again. I tried to ignore it, but it was like an unskippable boss fight cutscene. Then, out of the corner of my ear, I heard, "Young man." I looked up. Great, it was the crazy lady. "Yeah," I asked. "Why did you tell my son he couldn't use your phone?" she demanded. "Because it's my phone," I replied. "You kids are always glued to the screen these days. You can do without it for a single bus ride." At this point, I was stunned. So I didn't respond for a few seconds, then slowly replied, "What I do with my phone is none of your business." This lady recoiled in shock and anger, as if I had just buried a puppy alive. "How dare you talk to me like that? Show some respect," she shouted. She then saw my second phone, my work phone, and said, "You have 2 phones. Just give him one. You can use the other one." "No, lady. I'm not giving some stranger's kid my phone," I said firmly. "But you don't need 2 phones," she argued. "Lady." I was annoyed at this point, and my tone was starting to get aggressive. "It doesn't matter that I have 2 phones. They are my phones. I won't be giving them to your son. No means no." She rolled her eyes and walked away, her son screaming and clutching the legs of her pants. I tuned out the commotion once more, stricken with disbelief, and still wondering what in the world had just happened. I opened up some offline games to decompress. I thought that was the end of everything. How foolish I was. I felt a tug on my backpack as I zoomed out. I instinctively looked away from my screen, and this little troublemaker was under the seat, reaching into my bag trying to pull out my second phone. I panicked, smacked away his hand, and shouted, "What in the world are you doing?" Now, I am normally a very calm and reserved person. However, having served 6 full years in the Royal Canadian Army Cadets and currently being a drill instructor, my voice was loud when I wanted it to be. The kid winced and cowered, freezing for a solid moment before crawling out from under the seat and ran to his mother crying. I sighed to myself. Yep, she's back. Before the kid even reached her, she was up and storming over. "How dare you speak to my son like that?" she yelled. "Your son tried to steal my phone," I retorted. "Let him have it. Stop being a brat. You can stay off your phone for a moment." "It's not that big of a deal," she insisted. I was seething with rage, boiling with anger. Without skipping a beat, I spat back. "Well, if it's not such a big deal, how about you let him have yours? That way, you can keep an eye on your little precious angel and start being a responsible parent for once. Your kid being bored is not my responsibility." She turned red and demanded, "Are you calling me a bad parent?" And I responded with, "If you were such a good parent, your kid wouldn't be off trying to steal other people's stuff." Now our shouting match had drawn quite a commotion. I heard a few ohs and damns from the back of the bus. She grew visibly red and snatched my phone from my hand. Not my work phone, the one in my hand. "Give me that." "You brats don't deserve these," she screeched. I was stunned for a second that she actually did something so incomprehensibly stupid. Looking back, I knew I should have done something better. But I sprang up, wrestled my phone from her grasp, and knocked her down in the process. Chaos erupted. She started wailing like a banshee, screaming that I assaulted her son crying and punching me in the legs. The bus screeched to a halt, and the driver came running up. Now, seeing the situation, me towering over the screeching mother and holding a phone, he assumed that I was the perpetrator. This was quite a long bus, joined together with 2 sections, so I assumed that he hadn't heard or seen exactly what was happening, only noticing the commotion in his rearview mirror and seeing me knock Karen down after snatching the phone from her grasp. "Sir, return that device at once and leave the premises, or I will be forced to call the pole." Before he could even finish the sentence, the entire bus exploded with several other passengers speaking up at once, defending my case and telling the driver what had actually happened. The driver held up his hand, backed up, and tried to get everyone to calm down, which took quite a while, especially because the Karen kept screaming that she was going to have me arrested, that she was going to sue me, that she was going to press charges, etc. Once everything finally calmed down, I began to speak. However, the Karen interjected with, "Sir, he stole my phone from me. I demand to have this, insert racial slur, arrested." "Ma'am, please don't use that language here," the driver admonished. He looked like he was about to say something else. But I sighed, held up my hand, and in the calmest voice I could muster at the moment, replied, "Sir, this phone is mine. If you will allow me, I will unlock it." I held up the phone. It had an anime wallpaper on it, certainly not something middle-aged women with children would have. I typed in the password, and the screen unlocked. The Karen started screeching again. He saw me type in my password. That's how he knows. "Lady," a clearly annoyed man in the back spoke up in a booming voice, "there are cameras on the bus. Everything is recorded." At the mention of cameras, she turned white as a sheet. Then, without skipping a beat, she dragged her crying son to the back door and began pounding on it, demanding that she be let out, all while screaming obscenities and threatening that she was going to sue, file a complaint with transit, etc. That wasn't even the end of it. In the commotion, despite threatening to do so, someone had actually called the cops. Right on cue, 2 officers rolled up to the bus with flashing lights. The Karen threw herself at the officers as they were let in and started spinning some sob story when she was cut off at once by a very annoyed police officer. This was something like 8 p.m. and was probably nearing the end of his shift, or something, because he had an expression like he was absolutely done. Long story short, the bus was halted for something like an hour and 45 minutes. A second one pulled up, which all the other passengers filed into, not before giving witness statements. The camera feed was pulled, and Karen was placed into the back of a cruiser after she slapped a police officer. One officer said that they arrived because there was a report of someone being assaulted on public transport. The police got my contact information, my ID, etc., and told me that they'd contact me if anything else needed to be done. I have no idea what happened to the kid because I didn't stick around for the aftermath and just wanted to get the heck out of there. The worst part, my parents, who were always displeased with me coming home late, unfortunately, did not believe my story. They thought it was an excuse.